Hello and welcome to High Point Music's Gear Reviews. In today's episode I'm going to be showing you the VT Bass DI by Tech21. It's part of their bass Sans amp style products. It's a DI box, it's a preamp, you get some EQ control and a bunch of cool stuff in there. I thought I'd go through and show you a little bit about the features, what sort of controls you have, the sort of problems and solutions that can be achieved with this pedal, and then run through the bass settings that they give in the manual just to show a bit of the color and the tone sounds you can get out of it. So first of all, I'm playing my 70s jazz bass. We're running straight into the VT bass. I'm sending my parallel output off to my tuner, so my tuner doesn't actually color anything going on here. We're running out of the XLR output at mic level off to the sound card. And although you can run this pedal on phantom power from a mixing desk when it's using the XLR, I am just running it off a standard 9-volt DC power supply today, because even if you do run it off phantom power, you probably should have a battery or a power supply spare just in case. So this is what it sounds like. Both pickups on. Bridge. And then just the neck. So the basic controls here, we've got our level control, which is an overall master volume. We've got a blend control. The blend control switches between the dry signal and the sound of the preamp, which is the character, drive, and level settings. You may have some scenarios where you don't want 100% of the tone of this pedal coming through. That's usually going to be piezo pickups in a guitar, or if you're doing some kind of blending function with your effects. We've then got our mid control, our low and our high control, so basic 3-band EQ. These are active controls, so above 12 o'clock they boost signal, below 12 o'clock they cut signal. A character knob. The character knob is pretty interesting in that it sweeps through a few different styles of sounds, so it goes from older sounds through to modern sounds, older being anti-clockwise and more modern stuff being on the clockwise side. And we have a gain control, which we can use to make it fuzzy or make it dirty. A few settings across the back here. We've got a phantom power and ground lift switch. If you don't want to use phantom power, you function that there. The output here changes our level, little boost and cut. The idea of having a level control here on this connector is you can actually run this pedal into the return of an effects loop on an amp. So maybe using an amplifier, say a valve bass amp, and for some reason the preamp has a problem, you can just run this straight into the power amp and this will replace it. You may need to change the level to do so. We've then got a 20 dB XLR cut here. Very handy on certain mixing desks depending on what you're working with. Just allows you to vary this level to what you need. A byte control, which is an overall brightness control, and then we have a speaker simulator button here. I am running the speaker simulator on because we're running straight out to our recording system. If you were going to use this pedal as a preamp, say into the front of another amplifier or into some recording software where you have other options, you would probably leave that off, but I'm going to have it on today because it represents an 8x10 cab, and that's usually what most bass players will use. Other than that, we've got a foot switch which turns the whole thing on and off, and that's about it. So we'll run through and show some settings and see what you can do with it. So the first sound that I've got dialed up is their SVT setting. The Ampeg SVT is a very, very famous bass amplifier, and this is designed to represent that sort of older bass amp sound. It sounds a bit like this. Just some bridge pickup. Some neck. And then back to both pickups on. So pretty reasonably good clean tone. The next one is more of a tube-like setting, so I'll dial that up. So this is setting is their fat tube setting. It has a slightly flatter EQ. We're not pushing our low and high anymore, and we're bringing our mids up a little bit from the previous setting. The character does have start to move a little more modern, and I'm running a little bit more drive just to get that dynamic level. Quick run through this one. And here's a bit more gain going on there as well, so reasonably nice bitey overdrive kind of sound, which is a bit more noticeable in the bridge pickup. So I'm going to jump straight over their funk setting because I'm a white guy that is a guitarist. I'm not going to attempt any funk kind of sounds. So it's pretty safe to say that it'll do a pretty good funk sound if you're a good funk bass guitarist. The next one is a little bit more up my alley. It's more of a fuzzed out kind of sound, definitely aimed more at more modern styles. I'll play a little bit of a riff and then I'll do the unthinkable and grab a pick just so you can hear some of the attack that you can get out of it as well. And some pick sounds. So the next little bit I'll show you is basically what the character control does and a quick example of how the byte control can affect the tonality. The other settings they push in the manual are a warm compression sound and a yes style bass overdrive or bass kind of sound. I cannot play like the bass player from Yes, so I'm not going to attempt it. And warm compression is typically what you get out of any kind of bass preamp, but compared to using a standard DI pedal, this preamp gives you a pretty massive range of sounds that you just wouldn't have otherwise. So I'll just quickly run you through the character where you'll hear some of that compression and some of that overdrive feature, and yeah, and go from there. So we were last on our fuzzed out kind of setting. Let's run that down. You can hear it really brightens up the sound and changes it to a significantly more aggressive kind of tonality. Pull that gain down a bit. So a big jump there at the end, And then if we go back to just a little bit more level, take that bite off, and then on. So I'll just play a little bit with a pick just to show the change in brightness. We've had the bite control on, so it sounds like this. Like that, so you can hear it really brightens things up. And generally speaking, if you're using this as your own sound in the room without an amplifier, that's going to be a really good way to help you stand out in the mix. Just make it that little bit easier for you to hear. So that's the VT Bass DI from Tech21. It's got a lot of sounds in there. That sweepable EQ section is really useful. The character knob changes the sounds that you can get out of that EQ, which really makes it very versatile. There's plenty of volume for gain sounds or for clean sounds, and you get a pretty good array of character in there between turning the bite control on and off and sort of driving it harder with the drive and the character controls. So I think they're a really, really good solution. If you're playing live anywhere, it's pretty common for the sound engineer to plug you into a DI box. Now usually that will happen, your bass will plug in and then out of the DI into the amp, so the sound that comes through the PA system isn't an amplified or preamp style sound, and you can lose a little bit of clarity or a little bit of character if you are just running dry. This gives you the advantage of being able to run that amp-like sound straight to front of house. You don't need to carry around a big cabinet, you don't need to carry around any kind of microphones or anything like that. It's a real space saver, time saver, and it makes your bass sound really, really consistent. If you're using this in a recording scenario, obviously in a home studio, running an 8x10 bass cabinet or any kind of bass cabinet with enough power behind it to get those distorted tones, you're going to be hearing from your neighbors pretty quickly. So it's really good for low volume. You could run this into a little mixer or into a little headphone amp and practice late at night in an apartment or something like that, and you're going to get that really great tone that is sort of helps you to get your practice done and enjoy yourself while you're doing it. Of course, you can use it straight as an overdrive pedal, like I mentioned earlier. You just want to 2-channel amp it, or you're using higher amps. You don't know what sort of channel sounds you're going to get when you get there, so it gives you that option as well. And yeah, it sounds pretty good. So if you're interested in picking up a VT Bass DI, you can do so by following the link below. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to give us a like, a share, a thumbs up. Leave a comment or a question if you've got it. I've got a couple of other pedals that I'm going to show for the bass guitar coming up, so I'll definitely be using this for that as well. As always, head over to the blog if you want to read a little bit more about the specifics of this and the other pedals we've reviewed. Again, leave a comment or a question there if you see anything you want to know more about. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video.